Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. I'm Olakunle Kasumo. Thank you for joining us once again. In our teaser segment for this episode and the next few ones, we'll be looking at parts of a book and explaining what they mean and how they are distinct. When you flip open a typical book, some of the first few sections you will notice include foreword, preface, and introduction. Have you ever wondered how they are different and if they are essential for a book? Well, don't feel any embarrassment at all if you don't know what they mean and how they are different. Most of us have equally been as confused as anyone else at one time or another. But let's start this week by trying to untangle them. Now, foreword. A foreword is a short introduction to a book, typically by a person other than the author. It is a piece of writing that serves to introduce the reader to the author and the book. Forewords can also serve as a sort of endorsement for the book. The foreword usually goes at the very front of the book and is rarely more than a few pages long. But at times, a foreword can be written by the author. In such cases, the author often focuses on explaining how the book came to be or their connection between the work and themselves. Stephen King is an author that does this often for his novels. But a usual question is, must a book have a foreword? The answer is no. It is not compulsory for a book to have a foreword. But a foreword can be helpful, especially when it is written by someone whose endorsement matters a lot. And finally, please note how the word is spelled. It's F-O-R-E-W-O-R-D, not F-O-R-W-A-R-D. Well, the next one is preface. A preface. What's a preface? A preface, on the other hand, is written by the author, and it is about the book, how the book came to be, what inspired it, what the writing process was like, and so on. A preface is essentially a place for the author to defend his or her book. The preface is meant to draw readers in by offering information about the author's experience writing the book and the historical context for the material. So it's different from a foreword. Foreword, usually written by somebody else, is about endorsement, is about that person's relationship with the author and why you should read the book and so on. The preface is written by the author, and it is the author's chance to sell the book to you. Now, introduction. The introduction is unlike the preface. It is about, while the preface is about the situation surrounding the book, the introduction is entirely about the content of the book, what the reader can expect to find inside the book, what is important for them to know. The introduction is a chance for the author to tell the reader anything they will need to know in order to fully understand or appreciate the book. So you can see the difference between preface and introduction. The introduction is focused almost entirely on the content of the book. The preface is about the story behind the book, the experience of the author while putting the book together, and so on. So I hope that clarifies for you, and I hope that was helpful. Now, our guest today is Uri Ngozi Chukwuka. She is a content entrepreneur, communications consultant, and a TV presenter. She's also the founder of Empathy-Driven Women International Initiative, an NGO focused on supporting people with disabilities, especially women with disabilities. She is the author of this creative work titled Sakadeli. You can pronounce it in so many ways. She's going to explain to us, the story behind that fascinating title. Sakadeli. So, when is it okay? It's a collection of thrilling and thought-provoking contemporary short stories, at times presented with distinct humor and wit. In Sakadeli, themes like love, seduction, relationships, migration, family secrets, friendship, and war are brilliantly explored in this book that is written in verse. Uri joined us to discuss her book and writing. We'll be showing you that interview soon, but before then, In a fashion up-and-coming authors should be looking at emulating, she got a number of very talented and accomplished artists to read from her book. Well, perform verses from her book might be a more apt description. There are a number of them, and we can't resist the temptation to show you a few. But let's stick to just one for today. The reader or performer today is none other than actress Bimbo Akintola. Her focus was on an exciting part of the book that is about motherhood.
As a young mother, I have seen myself metamorphose as my children grew from cradle to toddlers, pre-teenagers, teens. I have been a mother hen, protective, watching over them, first steps, first words, first every. Interesting moments. Oh, I was a chief nanny. I sang. I entertained, I played, and sometimes I just wore them out. I was a baby all over again. So we all grew together. It was pure joy. Then I evolved into the female lioness, brought food, fed them, and fought of praise. Oh yes, I fought. School, homework, skills development work, teaching them that they are their own competitors. Cheering them to their best always, helping them learn and understand respect, humility, love for humanity. Then I metamorphosed into the eagle. Yes, the eagle flies high and drops the child. It's not without fear that I dropped my child from great heights, but with trust in God, who has been the author of the Metamorphosis Project. They slowly but surely learned to fly and soar to higher altitudes, all on their own. Motherhood. Yes, motherhood. It is also about knowing when letting go is the next step. Motherhood is love in its purest form. Motherhood never ends. Never.
Uri, nice to have you on Channels Book Club.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kuli. I'm delighted to be here.
Great to have you here. Sakadeli. You're going to tell me how this name came about, which I saw in the book. Very interesting. But
okay.
Before then, what's the story behind this book? What inspired you to write this?
Okay. What inspired me to write this? It's always a very difficult question for me to answer because I think it was just the beauty of life. The beauty of life, the experience and the fun and everything. I've been writing articles, but I'd never written a novel. And so I just heard a voice, actually, honestly, I heard that voice. I just heard a voice.
Fear not, it doesn't sound strange.
Yeah, okay. I just heard a voice, I said, come on, we'll rewrite a book. And I'm like, oh, okay, and I just started writing. And by the time I was done, within 6-8 weeks, I had done a manuscript for 3 books. So Whoa. This is the first book.
Incredible.
Yes.
In 3 weeks?
Yes. No, in between 6 and 8 weeks.
6 and 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, okay. I love the cover. Did you come up with this?
I didn't come up with it. I want to give Pixidia House. They came up with it. They read the manuscript, and then they have an in-house cover designer. And they gave him the story. He read the story. He came up with this. With this, and it was a winner.
It's just perfect, really.
Yes, it is.
Because it depicts the character so well.
Yes, yes.
Now, the character is Sakadeli.
Yes, Sakadeli, yes.
That's an Oyinbo-ish way of pronouncing it, really, because...
That's actually an African way of pronouncing psychedelic.
Okay.
The English word is psychedelic,
Okay.
But the African way is, I believe, is Sakadeli.
Sakadeli. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Now let's tie it to how the name came about. Before we even talk about, you know, the whole
book.
the character here.
Yes.
Who is Sakadeli?
Okay.
And how does she come about that name?
Okay. Let me say that when I wrote the book, right, I gave it another name. It was like Cappuccino. And when I sent it to my, publishers, before I sent it, I said, okay, let me send, I think there's another name, Sakadeli. Let me see if they would, if it will go. And when they looked at it, they were like, look, this is Sakadeli, and this is, the story is about a very brave, young woman, and she's talking from a very, brave point of view. And so let Sakadeli be the story. Now, for Sakadeli, it's a name that I heard, when I was about 6, 7, 8, and I heard Ebenezer Obey's Eshama Miliki, Eshama Sakadeli. And for the life of me, if you ask me what entered my head then, I don't know, but I just know that I just went back home and I was telling everybody my name is now Sakadeli. And I was young, I didn't even know what that meant.
Okay, now I get it. So that happened to you in real life when you were about 6?
That was, 6, 7, 7-ish, 8-ish, and yes, so I gave myself that name Sakadeli.
From that music, from that music,
yes.
Wait, you couldn't speak Yoruba now?
I couldn't, I couldn't.
You just loved the music?
I just liked the name, Sakadeli, and it just stuck, right? And when it stuck, of course, like my parents were like, when everybody started calling them, Mama Sakadeli, and my mom was like, what's that? So in the house, everybody, sometimes, Sakadeli, but it's not a name that that had ever come out at all.
Okay.
The only time it came out was when I had to give a TED talk, like 3 years ago. But it never came out. I never used it. I never remembered it.
It just stayed
it just
somewhere
stayed in. I didn't know she was there. I didn't know she was just waiting, to come out in 2020, I guess.
So, this is an audacious book. It's bold.
Yeah.
It almost has no restrictions, if you get what I mean.
Yes.
It's daring.
Yeah.
It explores topics that this part of the world would rather not talk about. Can you explain why that? Can you explain that, rather?
Okay, because when I look at it, first of all, it is a lot of people's reality. And we live in a very, pretentious society, and we're not having the kind of conversations that we should be having with each other.
Yeah.
We should be having conversations with each other. We should be having conversations with our children. We should be having conversations as a community. We should be having conversations as a nation, right? So, and the more, superficial conversations that we have, well, the kind of things that we think, okay, these are the things that should be discussed and all that. The more we do that, the more, away from reality, that we are. And guess what? The problems don't go away, right? And so the wider
they become bigger,
the communication gap, so we need to okay, hey, let's talk about this. Let's have this conversation and let's look at ourselves and let's laugh at ourselves. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. Let's look at our hoops and all the mumbles and all the things that we have done, and let's look at it and okay, now here, this is it. Okay. And let's...
Now, for viewers out there who have never read this before, who have no clue, let's talk about some of those conversations you were talking about that Sakadeli so boldly discusses. Discusses in this book.
Yes, Sakadeli talks about abortion, and there's a title called Pressing Pimples. And in my days, when we were much younger, I remember very well that even then and even now, you don't have a lot of, sex education out there for young girls, right? A girl gets pregnant, and she gets an abortion. She's not, we don't have life activism, active pro-life activism out there. And so she gets an abortion. She doesn't have any kind of connection with, the fetus. She doesn't have, there's no remorse. There's no, what's going to be the consequences? She just wants to get rid of this, right? And psychedelic talks about it boldly, right? And brings in experiences of people who, you know, girls who've gone and they've had several abortions. But then, you know, because it's not a book that judges you, right? It's a book that tells you, okay, you've done this, but this is how life is. And actually, I have seen women who have had series of abortions, but then who have also 5 children. So, and then you see women who have had none at all, but having no kids. And so psychedelic brings,
those
you know, that kind of
issues,
conversation out
out.
there. And then, of course, you have the virginity dialogue, you know, conversations we don't have with our, you know, with our
girls,
our mothers,
our
we didn't have with us.
I mean, our mothers, then our daughters.
The best sex education that, you know, women in my generation had was, once a boy touches you, you're pregnant. You know, once a boy looks at you, you are pregnant, you know. Nobody told us about virginity and the need for us to, like, preserve it. Because I had done an article, you know, on virginity dialogue years ago, and I interviewed a lot of women. And I was like, how was your first experience like? And all the women, when I say all, not one, you know, less, you know, was like, horrible. It was one stupid boy. Do you know, I don't even remember. You know, and I'm like, oh, wow. It was never after a candlelit dinner. You understand?
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have also grown up reading Mills and Boons, you know, how you get swept off your feet.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that way.
Unrealistic things.
Very unrealistic things, you know. And so psychedelic talks about it. And then there's a particular one that, you know, like, everybody that reads it, a lot of women, a lot of men, you know, like, oh, this is me you're talking about, this is me you're talking about. But there's this particular one, while others worshipped. And then psychedelic talks about, you know, when...
I think that's chapter 4.
Yeah.
Am I right?
I think so.
I read it.
While others worshipped. And the reason why I had to throw that story in there is because we've been having a lot of barrages on pastors and their congregation and everything, you know, how they sleep with women in their congregation. But I had to bring this, I had to come from the other part, because this girl was talking about, look, while others were worshiping, she was busy, you know, having, you know, all kinds of thoughts, you know, on the poor guy that was there preaching. And she was imagining all kinds of things, you know, all kinds of things that she wants to do to him and everything, you know. And believe you me, a lot of people that have read it are like, I am guilty.
That happened to me.
That happened to me, you know.
But they won't talk about it.
They won't talk about it.
Nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about, you know, how you have been crushing over your pastor. No, I'm not holding brief, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but, you know, I had to take it from this angle. I didn't want to go from... The other angle is overflogged.
And there is also a very strong angle, or how do I put this now? Psychedelic addresses the issue of materialism a lot.
Yes, a lot, yes.
Yeah, the dangers of materialism, building a society where there's so much, you know, materialism and all that.
Yeah, that's, in fact, that's the opening, you know, that's, you know, that's the prologue. You know, because psychedelic is, of course, you know, it's a novel in verse. And so a lot of the stories tapers into like a song, like a rhythm and a poetry and everything. So when it begins with, I am psychedelic. And then she begins to introduce herself that, look, this is what has happened. I have gone through a lot, difficulties and everything, but I call them all drama. You know, she shakes it off. And then, you know, like as if she's tilting her head and she says, but you know what? They're not taking away the bounce, you know, in my feet. They don't take away the smile, you know, of my face. They don't even take away the softness of her heart, you know, and they don't stop her from sharing the little that she has in her hands with everybody. And that little that has so much value, and the value that dwarfs money, you know. So that's where she drops it, you know. So you know that the whole idea, whatever she's trying to do here is, there is something much more than money. And we live in a society today that everything, you know, has been thrown under the bus. Every value has been thrown under the bus over money. We're very materialistic. We can't help it. Our young girls, our young boys, you know.
And there is some political angle to this too. Enyocha and Enyocha. Did I pronounce
Oh, yes,
well?
yes.
Did I pronounce that well?
Enyocha and Enyocha.
Enyocha and Enyocha. Sorry, I'm very bad at pronunciation.
Yes,
Enyocha and Enyocha.
Exactly.
That's,
is it a political angle? I
yeah,
don't think so.
oh, yeah.
No.
Even though I know that wasn't the message,
Okay.
but the context, the story. I mean, what I mean is or did I mix up the stories?
No.
The experience of Biafra.
The Biafran experience.
Was it in that chapter?
Yes, it's in that chapter. It's Enyocha and Enyocha.
Yeah.
The Biafran.
The Biafran experience.
Story.
Yeah.
What I found, particularly enchanting about that story is she telling the story, and she's saying that, look, I learned how to say the Lord is my shepherd under the tree. And the reason why I learned to say it under the tree, I was just about 3-4 years old. The reason why I learned to do that was because the jet fighters were flying across my villages, and then we were taught as children under the tree. And our mothers were running around the tree praying, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I found that story fascinating. Yeah. And then when she said she played hide and seek with her brother, and why was she playing hide and seek with her brother? She didn't understand that her mother was trying to hide the brother from being conscripted. He was just 14, from being conscripted into the army. So for those kind of stories, I found fascinating. And so, like we had to, because we have a character already, Sakadeli, so we had to connect, connect her with that story. And, we had to also bring out certain elements, of the Biafran War. And then she said something, if you remember, she said that the 1 million children that died, that she survived. And then the other ones, and then she ends it in poetry, did not live to dream, to birth, to live. She, it just continues that way, yeah.
Let's talk about the very unique style.
Yes.
This is novel. This is novel in verse.
Yes, novel
technically,
in verse.
This is how you describe this. Right. But I mean, it's interesting. Explain to me why you picked this particular style of writing. Why not just write it straight off and like every other regular, normal person? Why did you pick this?
Okay.
It's very unique.
You know what they say? It picked me. I didn't pick it. I told you, I just heard a voice and I wrote a script, right? As I'm writing the script, I just enter into poetry and then I come out again. And I remember the story and I'm laughing. Oh my God, this is so funny. And I'm writing, and I enter into poetry, So by the time I was done and I sent it to the US, to Big City. And they
just
were
like that? Yeah,
that's it. And they were like, wow, this is novel in verse. And I said, oh, okay, I didn't know that was what I was doing. I write a lot of songs, right? And of course, I'm sure you've listened to the Sakadeli song as well. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're going to listen to that in a bit.
Yeah.
But so.
So I didn't. The path chose me. If I didn't choose it. Yeah.
Were you writing poetry before?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was writing poetry when I was a lot younger, and I write articles, right, that sometimes, end up like spoken word or like poetry and all that, yes.
Interesting. So much talent there. Okay, let's, now the song, the Sakadeli song, you developed it specifically for the character Sakadeli rather.
No, I developed it from I Am Enough. I developed it for every woman and every man that has felt, inadequate in one way or the other. It's a song of authentication.
Did it come from I Am Enough?
Yes, it came from I Am Enough.
That chapter there?
Yes, it came from I Am Enough. It even starts with I Am Enough, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. Let's listen to it a bit, and then maybe you can explain a bit more the song.
Okay.
Okay, so who performed that? Really nice.
Yes, Grace Jerry. Grace Jerry is a fantastic golden-voiced woman. She's on wheelchair, and I in fact, once I wrote the song, I wanted to sing it. I said, no, I know Grace Jerry will do a great service to the song, and she did. And you know, like when she was singing, she was like, oh my goodness, Uri, this is all me, you know, like she was so alive, you know, singing the song. And yeah, that was Grace Jerry.
Wow, beautiful. So Uri, nice to have you on Channels Book Club.
Thank you, thank you.
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
And looking forward to that second one. You wrote 3, right?
Yeah,
and this is the first.
Yeah, this is the first.
2 more.
Yes.
Is another one coming out later in the year?
No, next year.
Next year.
Yeah, but it's all psychedelic. But this is psychedelic, so when is it okay?
Okay.
So that would be psychedelic. Who knows?
Something else.
There's something else. Yes.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
My spirit is strengthened by the Almighty.
I hope you have had a good time with us today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. I'm Olakunle Kasumo. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.